Hey, what's going on there, folks? Good afternoon, good evening, I suppose. There it is, definitely evening out here along the West Coast. Here in the state of California, it is this beautiful Tuesday night, April 18th, 2023, it looks like. Definitely in the 2023 era. 10:33 p.m. here along the West Coast. The latest earthquake activity shows a 3.5 here around the Turkey area. Also some activity ramping up around the Mediterranean. And some moderate earthquake activity here around the Middle America Trench with a 5.2 kicking in here in the last hour. So looking at the latest USGS map here shows that 5.2 into the area of Mexico. Looks like around the San Luis area, 10 kilometers deep, very shallow earthquake activity, but it is up at the surface here, well inland. A lot of times we'll see some deeper movement quakes here, but right now some shallower earthquake activity here in the region of the Mexico area. 5.2 again, 10 kilometers deep. Working our way up to the north here, we did see low activity into the southern portion of Colorado, near the Segundo area of Colorado, 5 kilometers deep, outside of Trinidad. Let's go ahead and see what we got going on out there in the satellite view, shall we? See what's going on here. We'll back out a little bit. What do you guys see? You guys see some beautiful features here, mountains, some canyons, and some rivers and streams. But upon closer inspection here, check this out, guys. You have to pay very close attention to what's going on out here. These are littered with a tremendous amount of what looks to be some type of oil pumping operations out here. These kind of look like campsites, right? But if you were to zoom in here, and I can't really do it here with the USGS Google map here, but upon closer inspection, these are nothing more than some type of oil pumping operations and wastewater disposal wells. And there are literally thousands of them out here. Look at them all over the place, folks. You would think this is like a national American campground, right? Everyone has their own camp space out here, but that's not the case. These are very well placed out here in the mountains, and they must have found some decent oil out there, and that's where that's taking place out there in the canyons of Colorado, outside of Trinidad. We have seen some earthquake activity out there in the past, so not surprising to see a little bit of further movement. 3.1, 5 kilometers deep, and that's just the facts. You know, a lot of people don't want to hear that in terms of the earthquake activity out here in the oil fields, but hey, that's, you know, it's proven. It's 100% proven. Further down south here into New Mexico, outside of Carlsbad area. Let's see what we got. 2.5 and a 3.5 coming in. Shall we zoom in and see what's going on out here as well? What do you guys see out here? Do you guys see that same beautiful campsite features out here, where every American can come out here and just enjoy the desert of New Mexico, right? Look at all these decent roads leading out to your own private campground. Well, no, I'm sorry, that's not the case, okay? I know I'm being a little sarcastic here tonight, but we got these oil pumping operations all over the place here, even in New Mexico, and we got 3.5, 2.5 coming in within the vicinity of that earthquake activity. Nothing going on across Pecos, Texas right now, but just because we are on the topic here of the wastewater disposal wells and whatnot, let's bring up the last 30 days of earthquake activity. I could bring up 100 different graphs here and show you guys that this is all in relation to the natural process here that humans are doing here with the not only the oil pumping operations, but fracking operations and wastewater injection sites here. This is the Pecos, Texas area, western Texas, a huge desert out here. I'm not a big fan of this area of Texas. Rainfall is not to my liking in this area of Texas. I'm not a big fan of the desert. So we got 159 earthquakes here in the last 30 days. We could go back here the past few months and see probably 10,000 earthquakes or so. But I just kind of wanted to pull this up and show you guys how these Earthquakes are very common out here amongst the oil fields. We all know it. I know it's kind of taboo to think, right? Oh my gosh, we shouldn't say that. You know, those guys are providing us a benefit here. You know, we have to drive our cars, but you know, there's a whole process involved here making doing these oil fields and wastewater disposal facilities. It's just it's happening, right? There's earthquake activity occurring amongst many oil fields out here, and if you look at different graphs out here throughout the last 20 or 30 years or so, you'll see a tremendous uptick in earthquake activity following the natural, well, I shouldn't say natural, because this isn't natural. It's not natural to drill below the surface of the earth and withdraw oil and eject it with wastewater disposal operations there. But you look at any graph here and you'll see that, well, the relation in terms of operations compared to earthquake activity uptick is one and the same. And that's not a fairy tale story, let me tell you. So a lot of wastewater disposal ponds out here. You can see it out here amongst the desert of Texas, along with many earthquakes. So, you know, it's something I cover on occasion. A lot of people don't want to hear it. But then again, a lot of people don't want to hear that the sky is blue, or that the earth is round, you know, or that, you know, we're not really, we're actually living in a universe. It's not simulated. I don't think it is, but we're not going to go that far into the craziness right now. So let's back out of here. I think I already went a little too far. Oklahoma, Texas area. Let me see what's going on up here in well, where are we at? Northern Oklahoma, north of Blackwell area. Let's see what we have. A little earthquake activity out here. Oklahoma's a little bit more spotty in terms of oil pumping operations and whatnot. These are wind farms. You can kind of see the windmill out here. The shadow. Check out that huge shadow. You can see the windmill right here with a beautiful shadow of that windmill. This earthquake occurring out in the field somewhere. So uncertain on what's going on out there. There is some older pumping operation fields out there. So, you know, it sometimes it takes months, years, days for the activity to show up there as far as earthquake activity goes. But all right, moving on past that area. Okay, let's move on to the West Coast, see what we got going on here. Seattle. Well, we got one earthquake here near the wilderness rim of Washington at 2.8, 19 kilometers deep. You guys want to check out tremor activity? Let's check out the tremor activity, Cascadia Tremor. Still elevated there, folks. Two separate regions up here into the Vancouver Island range and also the Washington area. 569 epicenters, continuing the trend of uptick elevated tremor activity here over the past 10 days or so. And probably more so than that. It's been probably a good 12, 13 days of elevated tremor. We are noticing a little bit of activity here into southern Oregon, a little bit of uptick in activity here outside the Medford area, underneath this region, obviously. So tremor activity continuing. Quite a bit of query blast out here along the west coast as well. Northern California, a little bit of activity kicking up here in the southern end of the Cascadia, outside of the Fortuna area, 2.6 and a 2.3. Upstream of the tremor, about 14 kilometers deep. The rest of California here, let's see what we got going on across the Calaveras Fault Zone. A little bit of activity across the region there today. A couple smaller earthquakes in the 1 range. The rest of the state here, not really seeing anything major going on there. Near Barstow, seeing a 2.5 yesterday and a 2.0 just after midnight. But overall, seismic activity somewhat minimal down here in the southern portion of the state. Up in the Yellowstone area, we have been seeing a little bit of uptick here across the area of the supervolcano. Although that activity, it looks as though it's kind of died off here since this morning. There's that little bit of elevated activity. Since then, clear skies. clear as could be there on the graph. Not a whole lot of activity kicking off there across the area of Yellowstone National Park. All right, let's see what we got here. Anything major going on here? A little bit of a noticeable uptick here across the Aleutian Trench. One earthquake off the northern coast here of Alaska near Point Hope. Looks like a 3.2 coming in earlier this afternoon time period. Not too much activity taking place up there recently, but there is a little bit of movement. If you look here at the earthquake 3D map here, or the USGS map, most of the activity has somewhat died off here across the Western Pacific in terms of the moderate and large-scale activity, with a shift of the momentum and the earthquake activity here to the Eastern Pacific. Now, a look at the earthquake 3D globe here pretty much confirms that. This is the last 24 hours of earthquake activity with limited movement here across the Java Trench, the Papua New Guinea area, and the Western Pacific here. If you follow my updates, you'll see that this is normally very active here with quite a few earthquakes, 2s and 3s and whatnot. But it has since shifted here to the east. So we'll continue to watch this area here along the Eastern Pacific for some potential movement. But just because this is very quiet doesn't mean that it's over there. It kind of shifts back and forth with the teeter-totter event that we sometimes see here amongst the Pacific Plate, and that's kind of what's taking place there right now. Not a whole lot of earthquake activity across the Fiji area, aside from that one quake early this morning of 4.6. The New Zealand area, nothing showing up there too broadly. Let me check out the GeoNet servers here and see what we have to go on. All magnitudes map here, a couple of smaller earthquakes it looks like. 3.2 8 hours ago, but nothing really spectacular going on across the area of New Zealand. A look at the earthquake drums here. Well, there's not a whole lot to write about or a whole lot to talk about here. One earthquake down south here in the South Island, New Zealand area, showing up pretty nicely, about 8-10 hours or so ago. But other than that, there's not a whole lot going on there, guys. New Zealand fairly quiet. The big island of Hawaii, now that things have kind of shifted here to the Eastern Pacific, lighten up a little bit. 2.1 near Pahala. Also some earthquake activity around the Loihi Seamount, it looks like, at 2.4 coming in. We'll watch this for some further activity. But yeah, a little bit of side swiping, so to speak, here off the Eastern Pacific and the North American Plate. Definitely watch this here for some further movement. A look at the South America region. Only some 2s and 3s kicking up down in this area right now. The Caribbean Plate around the Puerto Rico area showing a little bit of movement here tonight, including some 2s and 3s. Even a looks like a 4.2 early this morning in the Mona Passage area into the Puerto Rico Trench region. Atlantic Ocean, pretty quiet. Up around Greenland, we got one earthquake here off the plate boundary. This earthquake coming in this evening, 4.5. I would possibly expect to see some movement out here along the divergent boundaries with this quiet zone. It tends to bounce back and forth here between the eastern portion of the plate here, the Pacific Plate. When things go quiet out here to the west, we see activity kick up here along this plate boundary and also out here in the divergent boundaries of the Atlantic Ocean. So watch that closely. Out here around the Mediterranean, around Athens and the Greece area, 4.5 coming in just in the last couple hours. It looks like 35 kilometers deep for that earthquake. Look at the EMSC model here. Shows, that mentioned earthquake there, the 4.5, but also a little bit of activity here around Turkey kicking up. Alrighty, let's see what else do we have here, folks. Anything major going on across the space weather activity? Well, I can't say there is because the solar flare chart here very minimal, just some sea flare activity popping off here, but nothing elevated, and that's due to the fact here that things are slowly degrading here across the sunspot regions of the Earth-facing side of the sun. We could have this ginormous sunspot here, maybe 20 times as big as this current sunspot area, but without the complex structure and the instability that these sunspots would hold if they were dynamically set up. We wouldn't. It would basically just be a ginormous sunspot with very limited solar flaring activity, and that's kind of what we're seeing here. I'm not seeing any possibility of any major flaring going on across any of these sunspots. They all look fairly stable. There's not a whole lot of intermixing here, and that's kind of what we want to look for. We want to see a lot of the blues and greens and the reds all mixed in and bunched together within a small area. You can have massive amounts of blues and greens all over the place, but if they're outside of the zone of flaring, then it's not going to happen, folks. It's pretty quiet, I think. Maybe a newer sunspot down here on the southeastern limb of the sun we want to watch. But even so, I think that's just me being hopeful, to be honest. We're looking at an overrated threat here. I think this is definitely overrated for solar flare activity. 99% chance for a C flare. M flare at 40% chance. X flare it's 10%. I don't think that's possible. Just my own observations. I think this is probably cut these in half at best. We did have a little bit of solar uptick here across the KP index here, reaching close to the G1 class storm. KP index of about 4 or so. But since has died down pretty quickly. This is coming off of a potential CME that was produced over the past week or so, unnoticed, so to speak, and it wasn't really forecasted, but it looks as though unsettled conditions could remain possible here at the higher latitudes, but that's about it. Looking at the UV rays here, the UV filter shows relatively stable conditions here. There's no arcing, there's no sparking, there's no special moments going on out here amongst these sunspots. So that's just the way it is right now, and we'll hope for something potentially larger in the coming weeks as we look at some of the newer sunspots that may be out here lurking on the eastern section of the sun. All right, what else we have here, folks? Anything going on out here in the buoys? Not in the boonies, but in the buoys. Doesn't look like it. I'd rather be out in the boonies than the buoys, that's for sure. Wouldn't want to be out there in the ocean in the middle of nowhere. Doesn't look like anything major going on there. The Storm Prediction Center here showing a little bit of moderate earthquake or weather activity here over the next couple days, mostly centered around the Central Plains area. Speaking of Kansas and whatnot, but no major severe weather threat lurking. Definitely continue to watch that. The numerical models here for the West Coast, we're looking at some clear skies out here and some warmer temperatures coming on here as we reach across the end of April and May. I'll show you guys some of these temperatures that we're looking at. Let's go to the windy map here. We're going to go up here to temperature right here. Okay, check this out, guys. We're looking at some much warmer temperatures coming in here. Probably, well, today's going to be the last cooler day here. Let's see, what do we got for tomorrow? It's supposed to be somewhat cooler, but as we head towards the end of this week, expecting temperatures into the 70s, maybe a little bit warmer there towards the weekend. Here in the Central Valley, Sacramento Valley, 75 degrees is about as perfect as you can get towards Sunday. A little bit warmer, but I know towards the end of next week or so, we're talking about some mid-80s coming in. Look at that, 84 degrees on the 27th of April. That's more like April for this area. So, I think we're going to start getting into some warmer weather, but I don't really see any significant heat waves kicking up out here. And the reason why I can tell, if you go to the regions here and check out the broader scale areas for North America, check out the symbols here, and we'll go to the GEPS model. Here's our current colder system out here along the west coast, stretching into the Pacific Northwest. Low pressure in the blue, high pressure in the red. Red pressure, or the red means some drier, hotter conditions here. As we set this into motion, we do notice a ridge of high pressure building off the California coastline, April 21st. That will bring us some warmer weather, colder environments there for the eastern portion of the country. And heading into the end of April and the beginning of May, this is somewhat unprecedented here for the middle of May, or for the first week of May, to see low pressure systems off here on the west coast, but no major high pressure systems building up out here. Normally, year after year, we'll see a massive high pressure event out here along the west coast, or even sometimes centered here in the Intermountain West, that will bring some heat waves and some severe weather threats here to the rest of the country. But this is a year like unlike any other, to be honest. It's going to be a very interesting year for severe weather, to see how this plays out, considering this type of setup. It's just very odd, folks, to see this type of setup. So no major heat waves into the May area, and much cooler temperatures, it looks like, potentially here for the west coast as we enter into the first week of May. I'm not going to complain, but hey, I got a couple little ones that want to break out the swimming pool, so I'm not going to break it out when it's 60 degrees out. We need at least some 80s and 90s to bring out the swimming pool. So I'm sure it will come. It's just a matter of time. Let's see. What do we got for volcanoes, folks? Anything major going on here across the volcano hazard map? The Cascade volcanoes, Sierra Nevada, California, all clear, quiet. Nothing going on out there for now. The Alaska area, just roughly about the same, except for your typical regional volcanoes up here along the Aleutian Trench. Other than that, man, I think that's going to do it for the update. Hope everyone has a great evening. Not for sure who we have up here in chat. Timothy's up here in chat, as always. Thanks for checking in there, Timothy. Let's see who else we have here. I do like to give a quick shout out to everyone. Veteran Observer, thanks for checking in as well. Kathleen Westbrook, as always, thank you very much for checking in. Dumpster Diving Dragons. All right. Yeah, thanks for checking in. The 13 Rookie, one of our members here that won the recent member drawing. Congratulations there to the 13 Rookie. Cheers. And your t-shirt is in the production center, just FYI there, the 13 Rookie. We appreciate you here on this channel. All right, guys, have a good one. We'll catch you guys back here sometime tomorrow. Have a good one.